Hi guys, it's Matteo from Shout Out UK. We're in Parliament today interviewing Lord David Blunkett. He's a big name in Tony Blair's Labour government. We're going to be talking to him about political literacy and the House of Lords. Check it out. In 10 years, will the House of Lords exist? Considering everything that's happened, all the scandals that have hit it, do you think it will still be around?
Well, here's a paradox. Of all the things in British politics, in our constitution and the way things are working, the most stable at the moment is the House of Lords. And nobody would ever have believed that. You know, things are disintegrating around us in terms of Brexit, House of Commons, no majority, government reliant on the Democratic Unionist Party from Northern Ireland, chaos in our political life, everybody running around like headless chickens. And here we are. If I say old codgers, we're not all old codgers really, without a majority, so people have to actually debate with each other, argue with each other, persuade each other. Whilst it's not directly democratic in the sense that it's not elected, it is actually providing a bit of stability, a bit of ballast, whilst everything else is in a mess. So I think it will be here in 10 years' time, but I'd like it to be a bit different. I'd like it to be made up of the regions and the nations of the UK, and I'd like it to be much more organised for the 21st century rather than the 18th century.
And talking about solutions, and what do you think would be the ideal solution within schools? I mean, do you see political literacy as something that potentially needs to replace citizenship? Do you think the citizenship curriculum needs to be updated? Or is it something that needs to be taught in other subjects? What would be your ideal solution to this issue?
My ideal solution is that political literacy is part of citizenship. Citizenship should have a discrete, that means a slot in the curriculum. Now that doesn't mean that you don't engage the whole teaching of citizenship with other subjects. They all have an impact in terms of weighing up how life is working and how the system's working, what's happening with globalization, how the impact of modern communication is changing things for the good and for the bad. You need to be able to debate that across what's happening with the development in science, what's taking place in terms of climate change. All these things have an impact. What we're trying to do from the Select Committee on Citizenship in the House of Lords, of all places, is to try and put all this together, because it's all in bits. You've got some schools are teaching citizenship well, some not teaching it at all. Some are concentrating on the Prevent programme and all the controversy around what's happening there. We've got some schools who think it's character and character building, which of course is part of citizenship, but character is about the individual, whereas citizenship is about society, it's about the nation. And if we could pull that together and we could convince head teachers that recruiting those who know something about doing that, pulling it together, acting as a catalyst for citizenship, then political literacy will shine through. Because the first thing you have to do is to ensure that people know how it works, and that's political literacy.
Well, let's hope it does shine through eventually. And finally, when you're not doing all this House of Lords stuff, what's your guilty pleasure? What's your thing that you use to unwind?
Well, I like poetry and I like walking in the countryside, which is good for the soul. But above all, I like a very nice glass of red wine with friends. And whilst my wife, who's a doctor, tells me that sometimes I have too many glasses of red wine, I think there has to be some pleasure in life, and that's one of them. In November 1917, the Russian Revolution took place. It was dubbed by one of those who reviewed it and wrote about it, John Reed, as the 10 days that shook the world. Well, I think the end of October, beginning of November, may well be the fortnight that shook British politics. We had the terrible revelations about people's misbehaviour, lack of respect towards each other, from the most outrageous suggestions of rape and molestation through to inappropriate approaches. We had Priti Patel, the International Development Secretary, confessing that she'd had 12 meetings in Israel while she was on holiday, including with the Prime Minister, that the Prime Minister of Britain didn't know about until a day after she'd met the Israeli Prime Minister. We had Priti Patel suggesting that the international development budget might be used on the Golan Heights, pointed out by the Foreign and Commonwealth Office that the Golan Heights wasn't recognised by Britain as an Israeli territory, so we couldn't exactly be giving money for somewhere we didn't recognise. Boris Johnson, the Foreign Secretary, God bless him, manages to make statements that put at risk the well-being of a British citizen in an Iranian jail. We've had revelations about whether people had pornography on their computer. We've had resignations from the cabinet. We've had investigations from the two main parties in relation to behaviour and suspensions. We've had the Scottish National Party having to suspend one of their Scottish members of Parliament. If you actually had written it down and you'd put a sketch programme, a comedy programme together, it's probably that the commissioners would say, look, this is over the top. You know, you can't possibly put all this in one programme. People would think we'd lost our marbles. The trouble is, I think that people across the world are beginning to wonder whether we have.
And that's not including what happens in the States.
It's not including the wonderful Donald Trump and his tweets intruded on just for 11 minutes by a departing employee who was getting his own back. It's not including, of course, what's going on, and this is really serious, with Brexit and the will we, won't we, the negotiations that never were. And all of this adds up to a tragedy, and it's a tragedy for us as a country. And in seriousness, we need to get a grip.
2017, what a year.